Right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, Thank you so much for joining me today. We are excited about today's webinar. It is an interest webinar for Upward Volleyball. I see there are attendees coming in. We have a fun giveaway at the end of today's webinar. You do have to be live to get the gift. So let me tell you what that gift is because I'm excited about it. It is a volleyball cart and 4 volleyballs. So to enter to win that, all I need you to do, put your name and your church name in the chat box. That enters you to win the volleyball cart and the balls. And when you do that, we'll draw at the very end. Today's webinar is about volleyball. So if you came on here and you're looking for something else, stay with us. We want to talk to you about volleyball. My name is Jennifer McCraw. I am the Marketing and Partnerships Manager here at Upward Sports. And I brought us some awesome experts in the field to help us. I'm going to introduce them in just a few minutes. For you guys that are on here that are not familiar with Upward Sports, maybe you came on today because you received an email or you saw something on social media and you love sports. And so Upward Sports is the world's largest Christian youth sports organization. Our goal is to serve the local church as your church shares the gospel and reaches families. Our mission is to promote the discovery of Jesus through sports. And the way that we do that is we're able to partner with amazing leaders like you see on the screen today that actually lead the sports outreach, whether it's volleyball or other sports that we offer through their church for the sole purpose of making an impact and reaching families in their community. So that is a quick overview of who Upward Sports is today. Let me introduce our panelist to you. And before we start, I want to make sure I get everybody's title right because I'm thankful for each one of them. We have a longtime church partner, Johnson Ferry Baptist Church. They're out of Marietta, Georgia. And we have Danny Downing. He is the Associate Pastor, Sports and Fitness. He's also an Upward Sports Ambassador. So Danny, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, you're welcome.
We also have Corey Wilshire. He is the Sports and Fitness Associate at Johnson Ferry as well. He leads volleyball. We've been talking about flag football. So we're glad you're here, Corey, and all your knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And then we also have Sugar Creek Baptist Church. They're out of Sugar Land, Texas, and they're a 24-year partner. And Amy Parkins, anytime I do volleyball, I always ask her to come on because she is such a great expert in leading this. And so Amy is the Children's Ministry Associate there. So Amy, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, excited to be here.
I'm glad you are. All right, guys, we're going to jump right in. Today's time is going to be very informal. I want you to be able to ask questions that you have. I hope you've thought about how can I add volleyball 1 to my lineup if I'm already doing sports at my church? Or maybe you're saying, I've never done sports outreach before, and volleyball is going to be our first step into that. So either way, you've come to the right place. As you have questions, I want you to put them in the chat box. It'll come directly to us, or you can add it into the Q&A section down at the very bottom. Either way, we will try our best to answer that throughout it. If we see Danny, Corey, Amy, if we see any questions that come up that you could, if they ask you specifically, you could answer them in the Q&A section if you want. If not, we're going to take time at the very end and answer them one-on-one. But before we jump in, this is my last time to say it. If you want to enter to win the volleyball cart and 4 balls, put your name and your church name in the chat box. I'll draw it at the very end. Let's jump in, guys. We're going to start off in our first section here of talking about why volleyball. We know that volleyball is a growing sport. The popularity is growing. Here at Upward Sports, it is the fastest growing sport in our lineup. So we have many churches that have either stepped in for the first time, they're continuing to use volleyball, and guess what? It continues to soar and allows you to reach a different demographic. One thing we know about volleyball is that it is a great sport for boys and girls. I will tell you, for Corey, Danny, and Amy, They are experts in the field of offering this to female only at this point. So we can't speak to that, but just so you know, we know that this is an indoor friendly sport. If you are offering basketball at your church, this is another great option. I know Amy can probably speak to that in a minute, is they offered basketball and then they stepped in to volleyball. And again, it reaches a new demographic of athletes and families, an older age at times. Also, it allows you to reach new families that maybe their child didn't play in your soccer league or they did not play in your basketball league. So, this is a great sport to start with or to add to your lineup. So, I'm going to ask the first question here to Amy is, why do you think from your seat that volleyball is such a great fit for the church?
Yes, everything you just said, and then adding to it, I it's it's just another opportunity to get people into the church, which is, I know for us, that's a big part of it, right? Is what's another thing that I can offer to my church community, my outside of church community to get them into the church. And volleyball is such a great avenue to do that in because of how popular it is, because it reaches, you know, that older, that was a big thing for us to be able to offer something to middle school girls, and especially girls that volleyball is so competitive in our area. So many don't get to keep playing once they get cut from their school team. Oh, no, you get to come over to Sugar Creek and play a volleyball with Upward with us. I definitely think it is a great fit if you can do it for sure.
I love that. Danny, you guys at Johnson Ferry have a lot of sports going on, whether it be for adults down to toddlers to middle school. You know, adding in, there might be people on here that have multiple sports already running and like having to think through is how do I even add another sport? What helped you decide to move forward on your end as that associate pastor there with volleyball?
Yeah, I think y'all hit on some key points. One, volleyball is a growing state you know, in the nation, particularly in the state of Georgia. And statistics are bearing out that girls are leaving some of our traditional sports and going to play volleyball. And so, as we're trying to share the gospel, our charge at Johnson Ferry is to offer sports to reach our community. And so we were looking for an opportunity to use volleyball to do that. How could we do that? And then the challenge was, well, when could we offer volleyball? How do we go about that? And then another part of it was we were offering flag football for boys. And that was a sport we could go past elementary school to do that. So on into middle school. But we had nothing like that for girls. And so volleyball comes along where we could partner with Upward to do that. And the same kind of thing. Hey, we could offer this for females and go past the elementary age. And so, boy, with the growing sport, it it was booming in the state of Georgia. And so again, like Amy said, then here there's a club level element, but there's not an introductory level. And we have a number of large high schools that, hey, if you're not one of the elite, then all of a sudden you're frozen out of the opportunity to play. So we had two great opportunities there for people to come play and hear the gospel. And so we felt like, man, this is a sport we need to move forward and try, even though we'd never done it before. It's worth the risk of trying and learning and offering it to reach a new segment of our community.
I love that. Um, I also love the piece of being able to reach a different demographic,
Yeah.
offering something for those girls. So Corey, you are directing this, you're managing this. How does the energy or even the culture of your volleyball season compare to other sports? I know you do flag as well, flag football. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I think overall with volleyball, you're just looking at a much different demographic. Like we said, that's the middle school girls is who we wanted to reach. And we've done just that. We didn't have anything to offer them much before. And then coming in with this opportunity with us offering volleyball in the spring, kind of our not so much competition, but the only other alternative is club volleyball. And here being just outside of Atlanta, we got one of the best club programs in the country with A5. And, they offer stuff for tons of ages, but they're very limited on who comes in and plays. So again, that's a girls, we're leaving the traditional sports. We don't see as much softball anymore, soccer. Everybody's kind of feeding into this volleyball program. And there's not a lot of places for them to play. So just providing that, and I think with that comes a different energy. Flag football, you get some of the younger kids, first, second, third grade, they're watching the NFL games. They're like wanting to compete at the highest level. They're just very competitive. And that comes with the coaches too. Like everybody is coming to win. And it's funny because with volleyball, we don't have a lot of coaches with volleyball experience. We don't have a lot of players coming in with volleyball experience. And so it almost brings everybody to the same playing field level and just learning the game together, which is just super encouraging to see just parents come alongside their kids, come in as coaches, and the kids step up and just are open to learning a new sport. And it's not the easiest sport in the world. It is not a super beginner friendly sport by any means. So that's what we start at fourth grade and then run up through ninth grade. Just also tying into what Amy talked about with being cut from their school programs, those ninth graders, we still want to give them one last opportunity to play, give them a spring to kind of hone in on some certain skills in hopes that they will make their high school team that coming fall. So
I love that. That's the great bridge into that. You're creating this developmental experience where they grow. I love that. There was somebody that sent me a question on here. So just so you know, Johnson Ferry, their volleyball, they play in the spring. They had around 289 volleyball players in the spring. And then Amy with Sugar Creek, they had around 128 volleyball players this last season, and registration is currently open for this coming fall, which we'll talk about timeline, what the experience looks like. We'll map that out as we go, but that is great to talk about the energy in your volleyball league, the culture that is there. I can think of all girls in our youth group even that did not make that middle school team, or they're looking to try out for a high school team, and this is such a wonderful, wonderful bridge to that. Let's go to our second section, and this section is what does a season look like? Here at Upward Sports, just so you know, if you've never been with Upward before, we will help you map out your timeline. As a new church partner, you will receive access to what we call My Upward, and everybody's is unique. Danny's portal is unique to him, Amy's is unique to her. When you go in, you're able to create your exact timeline, and then all of your resources match your timeline, from your practice plans to your devotions, all the way through to when you, as the leader, turn on this app for your coach to have access to practice plans. One thing that I love about it is it allows you to structure your game day. You're able to make sure each court or each gym, if you have multiple gyms, everybody is playing. It's very unified. And for me, I have multiple kids, so you're able to honor practice times. You're able to honor carpool links. That is just a wonderful tool that Upward does provide. But let's talk about your unique season. I want to help our listeners today understand how you map this out. So Corey, let's talk about your practice. What does your typical practice look like during your season?
Yeah, so coaches will show up in the gym. We'll provide them with any resources that they need. Of course, all of their volleyballs, nets, and then cones and anything in addition that they ask for. They will typically run about 25 to 30 minutes of kind of getting through warm-ups and at least getting some type of drill in for whatever they're working on that day, whether it be passing, serving, setting, etc. And then they will sit down for 10 to 15 minutes to go over their devotion for the week with the team. And then coming back from that, they'll finish up with about 40 minutes of practice. For our middle school volleyball, the practices run typically about 75 to 80 minutes. And then once finished up, coaches will be able to speak with parents, do any kind of follow-up that they deem necessary, and then they'll be on.
That's great. Amy, is there any modifications that I know Corey, you ran about, you said 75 minutes, and I love that. That's part of the scrimmage time as well. Amy, is there any modifications that you do for yours?
We are kind of more the traditional, everybody gets just the 1 hour a week practice, and we utilize the upward tools that you just kind of mentioned, and coaches just kind of follow through that. It's very similar. The practice plan that Upward provides is awesome and gives those coaches that structure, and most of them follow that. And but yeah, we do 1 hour practices for all the teams once a week.
That's great. So let's talk about the divisions. I know you told me some go 4th through 9th grade. How do we break up our divisions? I know you're just female, but start, you guys, Amy or Corey, jump in. Tell me the age divisions you break this down for your team play.
Sure. We started off with elementary playing together and middle school playing together. We do start at 3rd grade, and
Okay.
we stop at 8th grade. So it is typically your first league is not going to just have booming numbers. Awesome if it does, but ours didn't. And so we did play 3rd through 5th together, and then 6th through 8th together. And but I would say ideally 3rd and 4th would play really well together. 5th and 6th would play really well together, and 7th and 8th would play really well together. So that's how we do it.
That's awesome. What about you, Corey? How do you break your divisions up?
Yeah, so ours is a little unique, and it's kind of something me and my wife had put together kind of when I came in to take over Upward Volleyball. But so we start at 4th grade. We run 4th and 5th together, and then we run all of 6th through 9th grade in one division. What we do a little differently is we take 4 teams and create a little more of intermediate to advanced group for those girls to play together, and then we'll still keep that beginner to intermediate group together, just so that with volleyball there's a wide range of skill levels. Anybody that's run a program sees it. Anybody that will run a program, this is one thing that'll come across your desk, is that it's such a finesse game, kind of just a lot of little things going on. So we kind of break ours up to help with some of the skills divided out.
That's great. So let me ask this, inside of, for those that are on here, inside of My Upward, you're able to break those divisions down by the age group. You're able to communicate to those. We're going to get to this in a few minutes. Amy, you talked about like a smaller number. What was your first numbers for the first year? Do you remember? I know that was
we
years
had
ago.
approximately 60 our
Okay.
very first season.
Okay. And you heard Amy say she made it work, right? And she was able to put those kids in there. So let's talk about the volleyball timeline. A lot of people in here are maybe looking at starting in the fall. They may be looking at waiting until next spring. They may be just gathering information. So talk about the structure of your volleyball timeline. How many weeks does this run? I know a traditional Upward league can run anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. As soon as you set your timeline up in My Upward, all of your resources follow suit. It is customizable. So speak to the structure of the volleyball timeline. What about you guys at Johnson Ferry?
Well, I can take that. We do evaluations in mid-February, right after our basketball season ends, and then have about a week to 10 days where we're putting together our teams. And Corey alluded to, there's a process where the advanced group, we're having to figure out which of the girls kind of make that group and let the parents know that. And that kind of coincides with a winter break. And so right after kids come back from winter break, then we practice. There's about 2 weeks of practice. There's a master clinic Saturday. And then our season is, all of our upward seasons are typically a 7-week schedule, with the last week being, for the oldest groups, the first round of a tournament. So like the younger groups, our 4th and 5th grade, would end with the 7th week. Whereas the older groups, the 7th week would be round 1 of a tournament, and then they would go on to finish up in a tournament. So about a 10-week schedule, counting the weeks of practice in between, and a week post-tournament type thing.
Amy, what about you?
We also run a 10-week season, a little more traditional. So games begin, we play typically 7 weeks, unless for some reason we have to throw a bye week in there. And then we just do, on our very final, game 8 is a single elimination tournament, and that is a blast. We can't do that for basketball because it's too big, so it's really fun to do that for volleyball.
So if you're listening in here, you have to figure out, would you guys say this is fair? You have to figure out what works for you, what works for your coaches, what works for your players, and then use the practice plans to how, what fits for you. Also, what is available when it comes to your gym. We're going to talk about facilities here in just a minute. Last question on this section really is about the coaches or the volunteers. People may be on here wondering like, oh man, Corey just mentioned people really might coach and they may not know a lot about the sport. What do we do? So we talked about this the other day, and it was a unique approach, Corey, that you guys had. Tell us a little bit about the response from your coaches, especially those who were not familiar with volleyball but signed up to help.
Yeah, so what we do here at Johnson Ferry is we offer master coaching. We offer a master clinic for the players that the coaches are welcome to come to. And that'll typically be a week or 2 after evaluations. And once the teams are set, they'll come in with their team and they can come in and learn skills and drills. But those master coaches we bring in also stay for the first 3 weeks of practice. They're at every practice for every team for the first 3 weeks. And we were just really blessed with the opportunity to have volleyball connections here. Our varsity coach for the Christian Academy that's run out of the church, Eric Eklund, really helped start the upward volleyball program here at Johnson Ferry. And then my wife played collegiate volleyball. So having those two come together to kind of come alongside us and help raise coaches up who had really no experience with the game was just a huge blessing.
I love the whole master coach approach. I can see myself signing up saying, I'll help, but let me be part of underneath this master coach. I love it. What about you guys, Amy? I know you do basketball. Do you see any of the basketball coaches shift over, or did you start new with coaches? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, we do a few that do both, but we really were happily surprised to see the new ones, to see so many moms, and there are some dads too, and that's always fun because they didn't know what they were doing, but their little girl asked them and they had to say yes, right? I would say I really enjoy all the moms that come out because they played, they know this sport, and so they coach. So we saw that a lot of new, almost like a new opportunity for a different parent to also jump in and help, as opposed to another sport. So I think that answered the question.
That did. And if you're on here, know that our practice plans do support a coach that this is their first time, or if it's their eighth time coaching or they're experienced. The goal is to help the volunteer that is stepping in to coach feel comfortable with the practice plans as well as the devotion. I do want to make sure you know the ministry resources here are strong for these coaches, especially our scouting report that allows that coach to dig in deeper to the devotion, because ultimately we want to help that coach grow in their faith as well. We talked yesterday when we were talking through a few things about how many players you had your first season. I know, Danny, you and Corey mentioned you had around 90. Amy, you mentioned you had around 60, and it's continuing to grow. I always say an excellent experience creates growth year after year. So whether you have 22 or you have 82, you want to create an excellent experience. And one question that I saw when people registered was, what is the smallest number of players I should have to make for this to be a successful league? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would think, what do y'all think? I think like 4 teams of 8 would be kind of a traditional thing. So you offer registration, you're hoping to get at least that many, right? But then if you didn't, then you ask yourself, well, God's given me these kids.
Mm.
So what do we do from there? So if you had 24 sign up, you say, do we go 4 teams of 6, or do we do 3 teams and have somebody do a double header every week, or what? I remember in our early days, we offered 2 years we tried to do girls flag football, and we just didn't get enough registration, but we had enough for 2 teams worth of girls. And so what we did was um, Oprah provides reversible jerseys. So we just put the 2 sets of coaching teams that we had put together, and we had them coach on the same night and basically coach all the girls that had signed up. So I think we had like 16 girls sign up. So we had them all practice together, work on skills together. But then on Saturday, the coaches divided them up into 2 teams and played against each other. But then every Saturday was a different group of girls. The other thing you could do with a low number is just say, hey, we're going to do 4 weeks. It's almost going to be a volleyball clinic this first year. And Jennifer, you said it right. If you provide a first class experience and they have a lot of fun and make friends, they're coming back the next year, you know. So I think that would be my answer is, ideally you have at least 32. And then if you have less than that, you're asking, how do we turn this into a fun experience with what we have?
I love that. And so know that our goal at Upward is to help you get the word out and share that with the community. We can help you with social media assistance. We offer that. But I love how you put that, Danny, as, when God gives you these players, we want to help you be successful in developing them through the sport spiritually and helping you create that experience. So let's move to, how do we implement this? We now know what our season looks like from a 9-week to a 10-week. Let's talk about, how do we implement this? We're going to talk about the facility, the net set. I saw a question from Rebecca come through about net sets. So we'll make sure, if we don't answer this, Rebecca will get to it during this section. We know that if you have a gym, this is the best place for volleyball. We do have partners that run volleyball outdoors. They have a sand court, or they have an outdoor, I think of Redding, California. They have a wonderful grass area and they play volleyball there. And it is in this, right next to their church, is a park type area. And you talk about the community that gathers there for this volleyball experience. It is wonderful. But when we implement, we also have to recruit our coaches. And so we're going to talk about how we do that. So Danny, I want to ask you, what were some of the early steps that you took to get volleyball off the ground there at Johnson Ferry?
Yeah, the first thing, once it looked like it was going to be a possibility, is I cast vision with our executive team, with our pastor and staff. Unfortunately, we'd done other sports, so that wasn't hard, but hey, we want to offer this new sport to reach our community for Christ. And we think it's going to reach a segment we haven't reached before. You know, we're not just adding a sport to do something else, but the reason is we think we're going to reach more families that haven't come on our campus that we haven't connected with before. This is going to be, and we could back that up because when we offer flag football, all of a sudden we were reaching families that we hadn't reached with basketball and soccer. And so hey, I think the same thing's going to happen with volleyball. And then the next thing I did was, and Corey had already alluded to it, I sat down with Eric, who had been around, played and helped us with other volleyball things and adult volleyball league and with our school, and just shared with him the vision. Hey, we've got the opportunity to use the sport of volleyball, the thing that you love, to bring people on, to share the gospel, to introduce the sport to younger girls and middle school girls. That's the thing you love. Would you come alongside and partner with us and help us to do that? Would you be the key leader in this? And so casting vision with a key leader. And then just, start working the timeline and setting up here's what we need to do to get this going to be successful. So those were some of the key steps for us.
I love that you brought your church along with you. It was not a standalone sport, or it was not over here. It was not siloed. It was, hey, I'm casting vision. This is a ministry of our church. I really like that. Amy, you talked about your net set system. So how did you adapt your facility to fit volleyball? I know that you essentially started with basketball 24 years ago, but if you're on here, how do they even incorporate finding the right net set? What is this look like? Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So we have the gyms, we have, but that was really the only piece that we needed. And so same kind of thing when you're trying to get people on board, you're like, this is really all that we need. You need a net and you need some volleyballs. You can start there, right? And so we did purchase our gym, had the in-ground net things. And so there was a certain net that we were looking for, but I would encourage a new director to adding this to just reach out to, I know a lot of us use BSN Sports, and they'll do a lot of really good pricing for churches and things. And so maybe reach out to a few places so you can try to find something within your budget. But the good thing about volleyball nets is there are a wide variety of different ones, and you can find one that fits your budget and get some volleyballs and you can get started. So that's really all we had to do was get the net, and thankfully we
The
did.
volleyballs. That's great. Rebecca asked a question on here. Do you use modified lower height net systems for younger kids? Yes, both of you do.
We just put it on the appropriate level.
Okay.
Net size. So we have ones that just adjust. And so, but yes.
Perfect. And then she asked about the recommendations for lower cost net systems. So Rebecca, Amy mentioned BSN. I know sometimes Baden you can look there as well. Corey, any thoughts from you? I know that you do a lot of the volleyball nets there at Johnson Ferry as well.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps having the adjustable nets. Even if you're looking to kind of fit a smaller budget. I think that would be the one thing to look into, is just to make sure that if you're looking to run 4th and 5th grade, the junior size net height is 7 feet, and then middle schools will bump up to regulation 7'4". Really, as long as you can move between those two, is a really great place to get started.
It's a great word. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to ask the last question in this section, and let's talk about then we'll go into how Upward supports you. I want to give time for questions for everybody. So if you have questions, start putting them in there. Let's talk about recruiting coaches and promoting your registration. You both have a unique approach here, and I loved it. So, how far out do we begin recruiting our coaches? And then, how far out do you promote registrations? What about you, Corey? You want to start with that, or Danny? Either one?
Sure. So we open up registration about 5 months prior to the first eval date, 4 to 5 months, just depending on whether that's a spring or fall sport and how the calendar falls. But really, as soon as we open registration, we're beginning to recruit coaches. The earlier we can get coaches in and get the volunteers that really truly want to be there, it helps both parties out on the back end as we near the season, because then we're coming in prepared to draft and create teams as soon as we can.
What about you, Amy?
Yes. So we typically will open registration 2 months before practice starts. And so that's kind of when we kick things off. So for instance, we only do a fall volleyball league, and we kind of run right with a typical fall season that mirrors our schools and things out here in the Houston area. And so we just opened registration, and so we'll start recruiting, and obviously using our church membership base to help us with that. And yeah, but 2 months is the timeline we go by.
So if you're on here and you're looking at a fall timeline, now's a great time to schedule a call with Upward if you're new, or you can log into My Upward if you're a current partner and create your league. Also, this is a great time to start preparing for spring if you're looking forward to that. I know Corey, you and Danny, if you back up 5 months, you guys are starting that preparation time now to be ready for that. So that covers our implementation and timeline. You can see each person, each group here is unique. Each league is unique for the purpose of furthering the gospel. So keep your questions coming. Let's talk about this last section of how Upward supports you. Again, we help you with the resources from practice plans to devotions. Again, if you run this 20 years, 30 years, however long, each devotion, each practice plan is refreshed every year, every season, so that it helps you as you lead, and it helps the growth of your athletes and your coaches. We also provide you with marketing support. We help you create a marketing blueprint. It is very important that your community knows that you are offering this experience in their community. So as a first-year leader, we will help you get the word out in your community. So we offer that. There is a lot of customizable options now that Upward Sports provides. From your jersey, you can put Johnson Ferry Sports on here. You could put Sugar Creek on your jersey. You can do multiple things. My favorite outside of the ministry resources is our league management tool. I believe that's one thing that sets us apart, is you're able to draft your teams, you're able to communicate through the software, through text. You heard both of these churches talk about they promote to their past players through this system and invite them. And then hopefully you guys get, you get ongoing support from the Upward Sports team here. So I want to hone in on a resource that means a lot to you as a leader. So I'll ask you, Corey, first, what Upward tool or Upward resource has been the most helpful to you or your coaches for running your volleyball season?
Yeah, I think like we talked about, volleyball is very unique. So having those practice plans available week to week, and they're not just the same thing every week. You only get an hour and 15 minutes, one practice a week. So just the fact that Upward provides something that our coaches can get to right on their phone through the app, open up the practice plan for that day. They can come well prepared, and it just really helps us on the league director end of like not having to be responsible to provide them with a practice plan, or to really feel pressure to provide the master coaching, because that's what, not everybody has the opportunity to do that. But with the Upward app and then having the practice plans there readily available, as soon as we approve them as a coach, that they can begin looking through that stuff is super helpful.
Great. What about you, Amy?
Yes, everything he said is correct. And I think it's just, you want to make things so easy for your volunteers, or else they're terrified, and the time they have to do. And so I think it's huge that I'm able to, I mean, I spend my whole training just showing them the app, and this is how you text your group. And they're just like, oh, that's so, I don't have to create my own group me. No, you don't. You can just hit text your team, right? So the Upward resources for coaches is amazing. It's always what I hear feedback that, oh, we went to this other place, and no. Upward is so, just really equips us well with tools to make this so much easier for the volunteers. It's wonderful.
I love that. You're wonderful. All of y'all. Y'all are great. Danny, what about you? Tell us what means a lot to you. You've been doing this for years.
Yeah, well, I agree that the practice plans are awesome. I'm going to have a little bit different answer. I'm going to say the ministry tools. And so within that app or the hard copy, Upward provides a weekly devotion themed out, and you get a couple different choices of how you want to do that, as well as a parent companion piece, as well as a little piece to the coaches to prepare their heart. And so that's something that I don't have to spend time doing every week. And like, I'm right in the middle of doing that for a men's basketball league and an open pickleball league, where I'm having to write that myself and spend time weekly doing that. And so I so much appreciate the fact that that's already done. And these leagues and our Upward leagues are much bigger than our adult league. So just not having to spend time doing that and allows me to focus on ministering to my coaches and ministering to my families, just freeing up that time to do ministry. That's what I appreciate so much. So that's the most valuable piece to me.
Thanks for sharing that. So if you're on here, I hope that you will be able to log in to your resource section and find out what is key to you. If you are a current church partner, drop in the chat box. Tell us what your favorite resource is for your sport. You probably don't do volleyball because you're on here learning about it, but tell us what you enjoy as we keep going. Okay, I want to ask one or two more questions, and then we're going to open it up to our group. Can anybody give an example of a time when either an Upward rep, maybe it was a support staff, or even another Upward church partner, because you guys have access to other like-minded leaders? What stands out to you, or an example of a time when someone really came alongside of you during your season? Can you think of that?
Yeah, well, I think for me, one of the benefits of being old and being in Upward for a long time is I've gotten to know some people, and I feel comfortable enough to reach out. And so we're in week 2 of a brand new sport for us, and that's pickleball. And so I was able to call Upward and say, hey, who's actually tried Upward pickleball? And got the names of a couple different churches, and just picked up the phone and said, hey, tell me what you did. I'm trying to figure out exactly what it looks like in a match. How did you do it? What's it look like? What went well? And so just to spend 35 minutes or so on a call with each of those people, follow up with some emails. Hey, what'd you do this? Was a valuable resource. It's kind of like a family where you can connect with and email back and forth and share ideas. Hey, this worked really well. Hey, don't do this. That bombed, but that was a time where just recently I reached out to people that had tried something to get their expertise and help me begin something new.
So if you're on here, you will have access to 1,800 plus like-minded leaders that you can bounce ideas off of. There's also a wonderful, when you become a leader, a Facebook group, a closed Facebook group, and there are tons of questions in there. I learned so much from you guys reading those. So that's just a very valuable place. I know after our last volleyball webinar, Amy, you were inundated with people asking you questions about volleyball. And so it's just a great family, great word on that. My last question before we open it up to questions to you guys, and then we'll do our drawing is, I always want to know this. As a director or a leader at your church, what does leading sports or using sports outreach mean to you personally? Anybody care to share?
Yeah, I can share a little on that. I think there's just a beauty behind it of just that, sports is a universal language. No matter whether it's on mission trips with language barriers or just the own barriers we create in our communities of, people coming back from different backgrounds to different family situations. Sports kind of is what brings everything together. Um, and so for those that we're reaching in our community that aren't familiar with the church, aren't familiar with the gospel, they don't have a personal relationship with Jesus, um, they wouldn't come here on a normal Sunday morning. They wouldn't come to Sunday small group. They wouldn't come to Sunday night worship. But, oh, hey, I can go play basketball here. And it's one night a week of practice and one game on Saturday, and now all of a sudden they're open to coming on our campus, and just being able to use that as a tool to share the gospel is honestly just such a blessing.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Corey. Anybody else? I don't want to shut the door on anybody else before we answer questions.
I'll just quickly, I also just, it's so fun. It's just a fun avenue. And, where I am, the specific county we're in is actually the most culturally diverse county in the United States. And so it's a really amazing thing to watch, just so many cultures and languages, and it's just like a picture of heaven a little bit in our area. And again, just sports crosses all those boundaries. So kind of just to piggyback on what Corey said, it's a fun job, and we get to tell people about Jesus while we have fun. So
you heard it
it's
here.
great.
It's a fun job. That's the
It's a
quote of the
fun
day.
job.
It's a fun job. That's right. Okay, well, let's open our questions. I'm going to give 5 or 10 minutes of questions. We're going to draw this. Let me pull up our questions. Let me go back because people have been sending in questions. And if you have questions, now's your time to ask them. Here's a question. Do you guys modify? I'm not going to call on you, so you just jump in. Do you modify the rules and the size of the court for younger ages, like 4th through 6th graders, or middle school through high schoolers? I know we talked about the court, lowering the net, but do you guys modify rules for younger ages?
So what we do is we don't modify the court dimensions at all. But what we do modify is the serving lines. So for our 4th and 5th graders, and really our beginner and intermediate for middle school, they work off of 4 different serving lines. So they'll start off being able to serve from the 10-foot attack line. And then we'll use floor tape to create 2 more lines in between the 10-foot attack line and the back line. And as they kind of progress through the season, our rule is if you get 3 successful serves over from one line, you move back to the next line. And then as you start to become more comfortable there, then you continue to move back further and further. So those that are progressing throughout the season, what we hope to see is around 70% of every team serving from that back line by the end of the season, at least for our middle school group. 4th and 5th grade will obviously still need a few more years to develop.
I love that. That's very helpful. Next question. What does your gym look like? How many practices and games are going on each week on Saturday as well? So anybody, how many games are going on each week with the numbers that you have?
Yeah, we have 2 full-size basketball gyms at our church, and so we can run 2 games at a time, and that's how we do it. And we are able to just put middle school in one gym, elementary in the other, so we don't have to change a whole lot. That's how we do it, and games just run on the hour.
Great. Do you guys hire, this is another one that came in. Do you hire officials? How does that work? Is it a mom? Is it a volunteer? When it comes to like scoring?
Yeah, so we have part-time staffers that do the scoring. As far as our up refs, we train our own officials, and most of them are
Right.
middle school and high school students.
Perfect. Joey says, do you find it to be a good idea to have upward volleyball to coincide with your rec or school volleyball? Or do you recommend doing upward volleyball a different season? I know, Amy, you do yours in the fall that coincide with the school or the
Mhm.
rec volleyball, but what are your thoughts on that? And I think it would be opinion, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah. We do ours to coincide mostly because that's what works best for our church, in scheduling. But in a perfect world, I would love to do fall and spring volleyball. It doesn't work for us right now, but that would be my hope one day.
Mm. What about you, Corey?
Yeah, I don't think either's right or wrong. It really just depends on your area, and then also just knowing your church schedule. Us in sports ministry know you can quickly fill up your calendar. So just working around what works best for you, and then what also just the community needs. Like I said, ours works best in the spring here because there is such a high presence of club volleyball.
Mm.
School isn't as, or doesn't carry as much weight around here. Um, so there's many of them are playing in the fall on their own and doing different things. But spring is kind of where we get some kids that are left behind, looking for a place to play.
So I think it would be looking at your community, but also looking at your facilities as to what is available, because it sounds like the need is definitely there. Okay, a couple more questions. This is a current church partner. She's talking about adding upward pickleball and volleyball next spring. Her question is, do you guys know of any churches that run volleyball and pickleball at the same time? They are blessed with 2 gyms, which is great. What are your thoughts on offering, because it's the similar age demographic, would you offer it during the same time frame or one or the other? Any thoughts on that? Danny, you're doing pickleball right now. Is it the same? It's not the same time as volleyball. This is
Yeah, I'm only 2 weeks into pickleball. I'd be a little, I'd be, I'd really have to pray about competing against myself.
true.
Drawing the same kids. Although some of our parents in Atlanta are notorious for signing their kids up for too much, but then complaining when they can't be there because they sign their kids up for too much. But so if I was offering both, I'd really want to make sure that I feel like I'd reach the numbers to support both. The last thing I'd want to do is offer both and then not have enough, I think would be my only concern. I do feel like what we've seen in pickleball, and again, this is a little different. It's a summer league, but we reach more boys than girls. Our first offering, so from that perspective, they may be able to go together okay. I would worry. I think they said they had 2 gyms, right?
They do.
So practically, the first season they could work it out from a scheduling and practice standpoint.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. Our last question here, we're gonna wrap up, is what kind of pricing are you charging for your leagues? So what do you charge for each player?
We charge think about 130 here, but I would just, right, if you don't already know that Upward provides a league estimator, and I would highly encourage you to use that because it'll show how much it's going to cost you per player. And it makes it just really easy to decide on your price because you can pick your uniform. Like if you know your community isn't going to pay more than $100, then you go and make the league work, and Upward provides all that tool for you. So if you didn't know about that, I'll plug that in.
It's a good plug.
I think we're 125 early bird, 140 late fee. And again, and we choose to do custom jerseys most of the time, which is a little more expensive. So I know you can do it cheaper than that with the league estimator.
That's great. So for you guys that are on here that are not familiar with the league estimator, when you're able to log into My Upward, you're able to customize your player package. Do you want to add the logo to the jersey? Do you want this specific jersey? Do you want this specific jersey? Do you not want a jersey? You get to add what you want in there, and then you're able to see how much this will cost. So then that allows you to budget based off of what you have in costs at your church and what you're trying to budget for the next season as well. Last question here. We could keep going, I know. Any insight on what evaluations look like? That's a great question, Albert. Anybody want to touch on that? What your evaluations look like?
So what we do is we're able to run 4 volleyball courts in our gym. So we'll run anywhere from 26 to 28 girls per court. And we will really kind of focus on their height. Serving is probably you need to put the most emphasis on for evaluations. And then we go based off of passing and then just like aggression. Because one thing you see a lot of, especially in the 4th and 5th grade, is you'll have this one girl that's willing to go dive across the court for a ball, and then the other one that'll just kind of sit there and look up at it. So it's like just making note of those little things, especially in a game like volleyball, starts to help a lot. And you start to figure out, okay, who's going to give that extra gear in the middle of a game, and then who do we need to come alongside and kind of help push them to get there. So those are kind of just what we look at. I have our master coaches come in and help me a lot with evaluations and run them through a couple basic skills before they just hop in. So we'll kind of show up on the court, get them stretched, go through a couple basic skills, and then we'll break them off into colored pennies on each court. And there'll be a coach stationed at each court grading them as they kind of go through some of the skills that are listed out on the Upward evaluation.
Anything you'd add from your end, Amy?
I was actually wanting to hear what Corey was going to say, because looking to maybe add some adjustments to ours. We currently do follow. So for a first-year person, follow Upward provides the drill stations, and we have always done exactly what Upward, because it just makes, sometimes I just don't want to reinvent the wheel. I just want to do what's there for me. And like I said, Upward has already put in the work, so let's just do it. But I definitely agree that sometimes it helps to see a little bit more. So, but Upward provides the drills, the instructions, and we just ask our coaches that have already signed up to come volunteer and help us. And we usually get enough to run, and we just have players come and we just take them as they come and run them through the drills and send them out the door. So they don't all have to be there at one time. That's how we do it.
That's great. Guys, I hope this webinar was beneficial to you. If you are on here, we're about to do our drawing. So this is your last chance. Put your church name, put your name. I'm going to draw in the next 30 seconds. If you're a current partner, I hope you have considered adding volleyball to your sports lineup. I hope you've been encouraged today. If you have, if you're a current partner, log into my Upward and go ahead and create your league. I want to see all those leagues created. If you are not a current Upward partner, I would love the opportunity to schedule a call with you. So you can do that by heading to upward.org/volleyball. I put that in there, and then schedule a call. You'll be able to schedule a call with an onboarding rep. They will walk you through your timeline. Tell them you were a part of today's webinar. They might give you something special. So go schedule your call today and tell them you were on it. They will help you with that. And then we will be able to help you create your league and get your social media assistance rolling so we can tell your community about it. And we'll walk with you, and you'll have access to Amy and to Corey and to Danny as well. And so if you are on here and you have questions, you want to reach out to one of these, send me an email and I will get you in touch with them. It's time to do the drawing. Here we go. All right, Danny, you get to choose a number between 1 and 18. Choose the number off the top of your head.
11.
All right, 11 is dun, 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 dun. Joey. Joey, what's your last name? Joey Fitzgerald? Is that who it is? Let me look. Yes, Joey Fitzgerald. You are the lucky winner. Yay! And he said, yay. You're the lucky winner of the volleyball cart and volleyballs. So Joey, I will give you a call today and you are able to have access to that. I'll mail it directly to you and you can start your volleyball league. Any last closing remarks, Corey, Danny, and Amy, before I close this out in prayer? Nope.
No, we're good.
Well, thank you to our experts. Thank you to our audience that came and joined in. Let me close this in prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for the gift of sports that we are able to use to reach our community and families. Lord, I thank you for Amy and Corey and Danny and their wisdom and their knowledge and ultimately their passion to further the gospel. Lord, for each person that's on here or listening, I just pray for their city, their community, as they reach families for the purpose of sharing the gospel. We love you, Lord. Amen. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great afternoon. Bye.